Let's go.
You're about to experience action like you've never heard it before. Action sports, celebrities, badasses, and massive interviews. All coming to you from the Polaris Razor Studio. This is Jim Beaver's Project Action, exclusively on Podcast One.
Welcome to Project Action on Podcast One. I am Jim Beaver, at Jim Beaver 15 for those of you on social media. I'm sure you're on social media. Anybody not on social media at this point? Yeah, we're all there. If you're listening to this, you are. I've got a very special guest this week. This one I'm airing uncut. Airs in my national show, the Down and Dirty Radio Show. You guys should be listening to that on SiriusXM and here on Podcast One, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. But if you haven't, you probably missed this one. This is going to be uncut, director's cut of the interview, a little bit more content than you get in the other places. But it is with a guy that I've looked up to my entire life, an absolute legend who is still killing it. Just won the Baja 500 overall this past weekend in the AMA Motorcycle Hall of Fame. He's also in the Off-Road Hall of Fame. A Hall of Famer on both two and four wheels, Mr. Larry Roeseler. This guy's been a factory driver for Toyota, a factory motorcycle racer for Yamaha, for Kawasaki. I mean, when it comes to off-road, especially Baja, Larry Roeseler is the man. He is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Nobody's going to argue that. And he is my guest on the show today. For some odd reason, I've been doing radio and podcast for 10 years, and this is the first time I've had Larry on the show. And I've known him for a long time. First time we've actually had him on the show. Very, very excited about this one. Larry Roeseler is just an absolute freaking beast of a human being on two wheels or on four. And he and I, we're going to talk a little bit about his win, I'm sure. But, yes, this conversation is going to go deep. We're going to go real deep talking all things off-road, two and four wheels. So, yes, if you're a fan of anything motorsports in the last 3-4 decades, you've heard the name Larry Roeseler, and he is my guest today. Very excited about this one. You guys are going to enjoy it. It is going to be epic. Before we get to that, though, do want to mention, once again, I'm at Jim Beaver 15. Make sure and head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to this show, subscribe to my other show, the Down and Dirty Radio Show. It's also on SiriusXM 217 on Saturdays and Sundays. Yeah, you know, and we've got some amazing partners in the show, able to bring you guys like Larry Roeseler, Larry freaking Roeseler, because of these amazing partners. And you know what? Car waxes have come a really long way. And over the last few years, Meguiar's has launched their next generation of protective products with their hybrid ceramic platform that's specifically geared towards do-it-yourselfers. All started 2 years back, Meguiar's introduced their hybrid ceramic spray wax. Came in a bright blue bottle. Its advanced SiO2 hybrid technology delivered ceramic wax protection durability beyond traditional waxes. It's easy to use. Simply wash your car, spray Meguiar's hybrid ceramic spray wax, then just rinse it right off. No rubbing, no curing, buffing, or mess. Provides extreme water-beating action, and the product has been literally flying off the shelves. And last year, knowing some prefer a more traditional style of application, Meguiar's launched their liquid version, the Meguiar's Hybrid Ceramic Liquid Wax. Long-lasting ceramic protection in an easy-to-use wax. Seals the paint for long-lasting protection against the elements. Delivers water-beating action. It's easy to use, applying like traditional liquid wax. No wax residue. Meguiar's has also launched a hybrid ceramic spray detailer for in-between boosted maintenance. It removes contaminants like dust, fingerprints, those evil bird droppings, and it boosts gloss and enhances protection. It also contains SiO2 hybrid ceramic protection. Achieve a just wash look by gently removing fresh contaminants between regular washes before they have a chance to bond. And this year, they've expanded the line to include Meguiar's new hybrid ceramic wash and wax. It's a bright orange bottle. Its unique two-liquid system together in one bucket delivers results unlike anything you've ever experienced before. It's a blended with slick, low-sudsing surfactants that gently lift and wash away dirt and grime. Its SiO2 Boost is a wax additive that delivers instant water-beating protection. Working in tandem, you get a slick and clean vehicle that beads water like crazy. Optimize your results and washing experience with Meguiar's new hybrid ceramic wash mitt. That's a dual-sided for gentle washing and adding that booster wax. Meguiar's hybrid wash mitt is sold separately. Now Meguiar's has this hybrid ceramic solution for everyone for incredible water-beating action and protection and durability beyond traditional waxes. Ceramic made easy. It's Meguiar's. And do you own or rent your home? I'm sure you do. And you know what? It's hard work. But you know what's not? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. And you know what? With all those formalities now out of the way, it is absolutely time to roll out the red carpet and bring in my guest this week, the absolute legend, Larry Roeseler. I'd like to welcome a guest, and I honestly can't believe it's been this long. We've been on air 10 years, but Larry Roeseler to the show. Larry, man, we got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, you had a big weekend. I want to talk about your career, but welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jim. It's a pleasure. I'm super excited, of course, and excited to share some of the stories. And this last weekend, of course, is big for me.
Yeah, let's talk about last weekend, and I don't want to say get it out of the way, but let's talk about that because you leave Baja, and race wraps up, and I know technology is it's a blessing and a curse sometimes. Used to be you crossed the finish line, in Baja, and you were either the winner or the loser, and obviously there was a CRB and things like that. But now there's so much technology, and somebody looking over his shoulder all times. It's kind of always a gray area at the finish line. And man, did you ever think you'd jump from third to first after this deal?
No, I didn't. And honestly, yes, it's nowadays, of course, I'm a big fan of a lot of it. I mean, having the VCPs, which is the virtual checkpoints, that really keeps everybody on the course better. They're able to zig and zag, and people can't cut corners. But like you said, with technology, with all the phones and video cameras and the social media, nowadays, if you do any little thing, it seems like someone's always there to catch you. So, we had a clean race, and I started 10th, and we actually physically finished third. So I knew Roeseler was behind me. He started in front of me. And I knew it was Andy and Luke in front of me. So I knew we had a solid third finish, and we were really, really stoked about that. Baja Jerky is the title sponsor. They're new to the sport. Last year, that was their first event as a race team. So I've been, trying to point them in the right direction, and Eric Brandt's the owner, and he's super excited about the sport. He's been a longtime fan, but he's in a position now financially to, run his own program. So, finishing third is huge, and
yeah.
it was an honor. I mean, we were stoked. Let's face it, I've teamed up with Andy in the past, and then the last 4 years I've teamed up with Luke. We just won the 1,000 together in the last Baja 1,000. So, finishing third behind those two guys is nothing to be ashamed of. And, I got Tabo right behind me. I got McCachran behind me. And, so it was a solid finish. And unfortunately for them, there was some what would I call it? Just some, in the heat of the battle, some race decisions that both Luke and Andy probably should have, thought over a little bit closer. And they both admit to it. They both,
Yeah.
So, the CRB, the Competition Review Board, reviewed all of it, and it's not just one guy making a decision.
No.
That's why they have that board, and they came up with the penalties. So, all said and done, we get awarded the win. Of course, it's not how I want to win races, but you have to play by the rules, and it went in my favor. So. I'm super stoked about that. Super happy to, get that win for all of our volunteers and family and friends, and of course Baja Jerky. It's a big win for them.
Yeah, well, and it's funny, because this kind of came out and a lot of people upset. There was a lot of penalties applied, this and that, and my first Baja that I personally raced was it was San Felipe, but the first time I raced the 500 was 2002. Obviously, I grew up watching my dad through the 80s and 90s race down there, and that was when my first Baja that I raced 500 was open highway. And, we're running 120, 130 miles an hour, and I was running the Class 8 truck at that point, you know what I mean? But, you're sliding around blind corners, passing people, threading the needle. I mean, it was ridiculous, and you remember that. I mean, you raced down there, a good chunk of your career like that. And I truthfully, I hated that. It was scary,
Yeah.
I'm glad it's in place.
It was truly scary. And once they started implementing the speed limits on the highways, I was like so thankful, because it was definitely the most stressful, the most dangerous part of the race. I mean, it's one thing just bouncing through the desert, and it's you feel like it's in your control, and if you make a mistake or you crash, it's your fault. Whereas on the pavement, there's so many variables, and it's open highway, and no one wants to give an inch, and it was crazy. I mean, there was definitely some close calls and passing on blind corners, and I try not to do that myself, but I witnessed many of that, and either passing or getting past. It was truly crazy. So for sure, and it's evolved since then, even more, even safer yet. So now we have the Stella. Now the speed zones are in order, where we, like this race, all the speed zones were 37 miles an hour. So in the past, like the 1,000, we had some 60s, and then we had some 37. So I'm a big fan of, yes, let's just take a timeout. Let's take a break. For me, it's a time to, talk on the radio, time to, take a drink of water, maybe eat a little something, and just chill out for a minute and get ready for the next moto,
Yeah. I never really thought of it that way, but get ready for the next moto. But, what I think is funny too, and you can attest to this, but, Trophy Truck has come such a long way. And, when you first kind of made the transition to Trophy Truck, things like that, I mean, you were a part of some great programs, but even then, Larry, races were separated. If you just finished, you knew you were almost guaranteed a top 5. If you had a really good day, you know you were almost going to get a podium, and, winner might finish the line, then maybe 30 minutes later there'd be another truck, and, top 3 might be spread out by an hour, something like that. I mean, we're seeing these races now. I mean, it's got just, crazy. We're talking seconds separating, podium finishers and things. I mean, to me, this is just, it's kind of madness what's going on in Trophy Truck with the competitiveness,
Yes, and it's exciting. I mean, it for me, even before this race, I was talking to Luke, and it was, it's like, man, whoever wins this race, my hat's going to go off to them and congratulate them, because the course was super technical, and we know there's a good 10 trucks out there that can run the pace, and really good drivers, a lot of experience, and the equipment's gotten better. The equipment's got way more reliable. Luke only lost San Felipe by 16 seconds. And if you look at the unofficial results for this race, prior to the penalties, Luke could have beat his cousin by 4 seconds only. So yeah, it's really good competition and close, tough racing. Off-road racing, of course, dust is such a factor, and track position. So, pit strategy, there's so much to it, but that's part of the game, So yeah, it's super exciting for sure.
Yeah, well, and I want to talk about kind of the history of your career, but that being said, you kind of talking there about off-road and kind of what you love about the sport, and I got to ask you, through the course of your career, you've accomplished so much in off-road. Was there ever any opportunities where where people would call and want you to go do something else, but you just always had the draw to off-road? Did you ever have any of those opportunities pop up?
Yeah, back in the motorcycle days, there was a little bit of talk about, maybe going to do motocross rather than off-road. But, honestly, my heart, my experience, everything was more towards off-road. And because I trained a lot with, Ricky Johnson, and I rode for Yamaha for 3 years. So there was some, possibilities maybe. But honestly, just growing up as a young guy, with my mini bike, going to the races with my dad and family, and I mean, it was really in my heart, watching Malcolm Smith on any Sunday. I was, that's everything was that direction for me. That's what I wanted to do. So, and that's exactly what I did. I went on to ride, 13 ISDEs. I got 10 gold medals in those. I remember my first gold medal. Malcolm Smith sent me a letter and congratulated me. I wish I had that letter to this day. I'd have it framed, But growing up in the Riverside, San Bernardino area, you have Walker Evans and Malcolm Smith, and my dad was a good rider in the local desert racing. So, I had some pretty big idols right around me, and started to go to Mexico. You mentioned your first Baja. So my first Baja was in 1972, the Baja 500. So I rode with Mitch Mays on a 125cc. This is like 48 years ago, and we won the 125cc class. Then 4 years later, I moved up to the big bikes, or 250s and open class in the local district races. And Mitch and I again teamed up together. We were both riding for Husqvarna. So in 1976, him and I again won, but this time it was the Baja 1000, and we won overall. So, yeah. So for me, I've been so blessed with my career and my racing, so really for me it was once it took hold, I really had no reason to leave it. I just on my days off, go ride. On weekends that we're not racing or doing something, we go camp and go ride. And I mean, matter of fact, this Friday we're doing a night ride with a bunch of friends in UTVs. I can't wait to get behind the wheel and go tooling around the desert in a night ride.
That's and it's funny you say that too, because that's something interesting I've always found interesting about off-road, because I was the same way with my dad. Well, he was in the shop prepping, and he was going and racing the Class 8 truck all over the place. But when he wasn't, we were still out in the desert on our quads or dirt bikes or pre-running around Parker. Like, we were always out doing something off-road. And I'm still that day, when I'm not racing, I've got the RV out and we're camping with the razors and going on rides. And, off-road's kind of the unique, and motocross is the same way. But when you're not racing, you're still participating in it. Most motorsports aren't that way. Drag racers, when they're not drag racing, they're not racing, or IndyCar drivers. It's a weird dynamic and culture we have in off-road.
I truly agree. And and that's what makes it so special. I mean, I have just as much fun. I mean, of course, winning races is exciting and fun, but before the race, the weeks of pre-running or the weekends camping, it's, of course, I'm not going as fast, but I've been in. I mean, I got thousands and thousands of miles in UTVs, and people go, well, isn't that boring after getting out of a trophy truck? And like, no, it's all relative, and it's fun, and it's exciting, and the places you can go and adventure, and so it's there's a lot of good in off-roading for sure.
Yeah, let's go back and talk a little bit about the start on motorcycles and stuff. You mentioned winning that first Baja in '72, the first 500, but kind of what was the progression? When did you think, like, you went down there, everybody wants to race, but when did you see this as a logical career path? And obviously you've raced with some iconic teams. I mean, as a kid in the 80s, I remember you and Kawasaki, and I wish I still had the posters I had hanging on my wall. No idea where those are at now, but when did you see it as a career path? Like, oh, I might actually be able to make a living at this.
And it's funny. It did. It made a curve. I was still in high school, and okay, I'm going to be a dentist or maybe an electrician. My grandfather was an electrician, but I'm racing local desert races and not making really. I had some little sponsorship, and they're paying for entry fees, and my dad, of course, is behind me 100%, and then I wasn't even out of high school, and I got some opportunities to go to Europe. I did some endurance races, some 24-hour team races, and made some pretty good money there. And then I started getting the bigger sponsorships, like with Husqvarna, and in the 1980, 81, 82, I rode for Yamaha. Then I actually went back to Husqvarna, and making a little bit of money, but at that age and that time, it was very little overhead to get by, and it probably wasn't until the Kawasaki days started in '87, and that's when I'd already won some Bajas and starting to establish a pretty good name there, and with Yamaha was okay money, but then the Kawasaki program came up and we really built that program. It got bigger and bigger and stronger. So it was just a real smooth transition. Then it never really dawned on me that it was this wave I've been riding. It's like the longest wave of anybody, It's just like I just keep riding it, So when I actually thought I could just keep going on it, I can't say exactly when, but it started to take off, and I've just been riding it ever since.
Yeah. Well, and how about the transition to four wheels? Because you're one of the few guys that have, been, Ricky Johnson, another one who's had a phenomenal career on both, But when did you see the transition to four wheels happening? I know I believe your first ever race was with Kurt LeDuc. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I did a race with Kurt, the Mint 400. So yeah, the transition there, I knew I wanted to. I was just intrigued by the trucks, and I love Baja and the off-road racing. I really envisioned that transition. Jack Johnson made the transition, Dan Smith, and those are all guys I've teamed up with and raced with on against them and with them as partners. But I started building a pre-runner, and I went to Kurt LeDuc, and that was in '94. And that actually maybe a little bit before that. Started building in '93. So '94, November of '94, the Baja 1000, I won it with Danny Hamill and Ty Davis. And that was my 10th overall victory on a motorcycle in the 1,000. And, I told Kawasaki, I think that's a nice round number. And I already was building my pre-runner. I was already like wanting to sort of step down. We got Danny and Ty that are more than capable of carrying the flag, and so that's really when I said, okay, enough is enough, and I was still contracted. I was still racing smaller events, still going to events, doing PR stuff, but to really step down from that top box. And then so sad, the very next June is when Danny Hamill died, leaving Ensenada, starting the Baja 500. So it just really solidified my decision. I know it's dangerous. I know enough is enough. And of course I feel and think of Danny all the time, but making that transition, there was an opportunity with Walker. Well, I did that race with Kurt, because he built my pre-runner. We did that race. We did a local race too in Barstow, I believe. But Walker Evans got wind of it, that I built this pre-runner. So it was basically up between Jack Johnson and me to get the drive, and for the season of '95. So they ended up giving it to Jack because he'd already been racing cars, but he didn't have a very good year. So when the 1,000 came around in '95, they thought they'd give me a try at it. So I actually did the Laughlin race prior to that and finished, I think, like 7th or something. And then the 1,000, I was running really good. We had oil, we had engine problems. I actually led for a while. I passed Walker, and he was changing a flat. And then I hear him on the radio, said, "Hey, pull over, I'm coming." So I had no choice but to let the boss by, But I made it to La Paz, and it was drinking a gallon of oil about every 100 miles. And, I don't remember what we finished. I think we got 6th or something, but, we made it. And that was, just those 2 races. And then the very next year I got the opportunity to join the McPherson team. So I was with them for 4 years. So 96, 97, 98, 99, the first 3 years driving Little Mac, and we had great success there, and then the last year they let me drive the trophy truck, and we won. Same thing. They were having problems with trying to develop the all-wheel drive.
The all-wheel drive at the time.
And Yep, and then I won Vegas to Reno in it overall, and then the Baja 1000 I got second overall in it. With that was the year Raglan won. I was second. Ivan Stewart was third. So, a respectable finish there. So then after that, I went to the Herps, and everybody pretty much knows the success that we had for many, many, many years. I was with them. Driving the Truggy with Troy, we won the 1,000 a couple times. We won the 500 a couple times. We, won championships. We won other races. So it was a big, not only their name is iconic in the sport, but the Truggy became so, the Land Shark became so famous in Mexico. I mean, even to this day, people ask about that car and ask about me and the Herp. So, yeah, it's made a pretty big name for ourselves driving that vehicle.
Well, I'm just looking down the list of vehicles you've driven, and I got to say, you literally are the only guy on the planet. I mean, you've driven for Walker, you drove Big Mac, Little Mac. You've driven the Shark. I'm looking, PPI. We can't forget about that truck that you raced with Ivan.
Yep.
And then
that's a. I'm sorry for interrupting, but that's a great story too. After the Herps run of success, I did drive that one year with Roger Norman, but and we won the 1,000 together. But I actually went the Toyota program, Baja 2000, or the year 2000, I should say. Both Nevada and Vesna Desert and Score. They both had their big events to celebrate the year 2000. So. Mark Johnson used to be my team green manager for many years, and he moved on and was working for Cal Wells at PPI. And so when those events got presented to everybody, it was like Mark Johnson said, well, Ivan's not driving alone, and I know who we're going to hire. So it was, I didn't really have to audition for it.
Yeah.
It was, I think Mark was pretty set that I was the man, and we tested. I put over 1,000 miles in the Toyota at Barstow, and we went to the Nevada 2000, and after, let me think, it was, I think after day 5, I think it was a 6-day race or 5-day race. I don't remember. But we had a good lead. We had about a 10-minute lead, and it vapor locked on me. It was the second to last day. It vapor locked on me up at Tonopah. We had a really good lead, and it was low on fuel. We were scheduled to do a splash because you got hot temperature, low fuel, and elevation. So it was sort of a recipe for vapor locking, and they knew it. And they couldn't get to the pit because of road construction. So on the radio, they're telling me, you got plenty of fuel, you'll make it. Just keep going, So because they were chasing along, and unfortunately, it did vapor lock on me. So after a period of time, I was able to get vice grips. I pinched the return line, plus it cooled down. They had a Class 7 truck or someone bring in 5-gallon gas can to me, and I poured that in. And finally, like 45 minutes later, I got fuel pressure, and only had to go like 4 or 5 miles, 6 miles to the finish of that day. So after leading it, and then I think we ended up 16th that day. So the next day, I remember Ivan, we alternated days.
Yeah.
And the next day, the last day, Ivan was supposed to start. And Mark Johnson said, Larry needs more seat time. We're not going to win this thing. Just let's give him the seat time. And Mark pulled me to the side and said, okay, Larry, here's a perfect opportunity to show me what you got. So I said, okay, I got the green light. So I started 16th and I finished second physically, and I won the day. So that pretty much, everybody sort of opened their eyes and said, I think Mark picked the right guy. Well, and then of course the Baja 2000, we had like a 45-minute lead. We split it up into quarters. Ivan drove the first quarter. I got in it. We were second physically. I get past the first place truck, and just cruising, just getting through it, get all the way down to San Ignacio, and we had like a 45-minute lead at that point, and it dropped a cylinder, and it dropped a seat, broke a valve spring or something, dropped a seat in the head, and it ended up being catastrophic a little bit later after that. Ivan got in and took off, and it finally grenaded. So super disappointing, of course. But yeah, the fact that, like you said, I've been able to drive a lot of different vehicles. Not many people can say they drove the Ivan Stewart Toyota, the PPI Toyota, and driving the Truggy for all those years with the Herbst family. It's really been awesome to I drove with Andy in 17 and the Tesco truck, and the last 4 years now with Luke and his truck. So it's been pretty exciting, and good race cars, good teams. I mean, as you know, a big secret to success, and it's no secret, is to surround yourself by really good people. And off-road racing is no different than that. So good people, good equipment, and then you're allowed, like someone like myself, to do what I do, and that's go racing and try to make good decisions on the race course and not make mistakes and bring her home.
Yeah. Well, and obviously you bring your A game to anything you do. I mean, that's just been the story of your career, but things like moving into that PPI seat with Ivan, I mean, that's, arguably the most iconic race program in off-road history. I mean, did you feel like moving into that, any additional pressure? I mean, you'd been with the Herbst, and that's about as iconic as it comes, and it's like, then you move into that. I mean, did you feel like, man, I have to produce here?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Honestly, I felt really comfortable. I'd been in that position a lot with Kawasaki and my professional career of riding motorcycles. So I was up for the task, and PPI was around for 17 years, and the word was, I mean, I didn't have the contract in my hand, but the plan was to, Ivan was going to phase out, and they're phasing me in. So for me, it was like, hey, I just hit the jackpot. Yeah. I'm gonna continue racing and continue this Toyota, program, and unfortunately, that same year is when PPI and Toyota had a falling out, and that program ended. So it was just a bittersweet time at that point.
Yeah, and I had heard rumors, too, that they would, had kind of planned on building a more traditional two-seat style trophy truck, things like that. I heard, I know your name was mentioned. I knew there was a new truck kind of that had been mentioned. There was a lot of rumors swirling around that time about the future of the program, and I think, obviously, at this point, we'll never know, right? But, I think some of the rumors really had people excited about the next couple of years of that program.
Yeah, Yes, I sure wish something could have materialized from all that. Of course, I would like to think that, my name would have been thrown in the hat. So, you never know. But, yes, a lot of time has gone by now, so you'd be surprised to I don't see it really being a factory kind of Toyota backing program if in fact they did something. But, yeah, you never know.
Yeah. So, that being said, let's talk a little bit about tech, because, when you first went into four wheels, and obviously, you were, racing the Herbst Truggy there for a while, and you raced that PPI truck. Technology was crazy then, but, how does that compare to what you're driving today? And I know now all these all-wheel drive trucks are coming in, and obviously you drove some of the original all-wheel drive trucks with, with Big Mac and things like that back in the day. But how far has the technology come, Larry? You as a driver who've been around and you've been able to see the progression, drive all these amazing vehicles. The truck you're driving today, is it that much faster than what you were driving, say, 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that question, because the truck I just won in is 13 years old. It's an ID design. It's an ID design, two-wheel drive truck, and it's really not that much difference. If you look at, you have to. I'm sure if you're an engineer or you got a tape measure out, the steering geometry is probably better. Some of the ratio for the shock, ratio, maybe build in some forward bite, or, better steering components, better, just all the little things, but nothing huge, even the all-wheel drive Big Mac back in its day, it was good, but the biggest problem there, it had no wheel travel. So I have not driven any of the Mason trucks, but according to Luke, and he proved it this last weekend, he went really fast, and it's the first time he's raced it. He said it's like cheating, and I believe him. They got big motors, they got wheel travel, and they've, all the trucks are more reliable these days, and Masons have seemed to have, sort of figured that all out. So my hat goes off to them. But again, the ID truck I'm driving, being as old as it is, and it's not always the fastest. You got to be consistent. You got to, my truck handles good. It corners good. It does everything good. Maybe a little heavier than some of the trucks out there. I'm definitely not running as big a motor as a lot of the guys. So sort of like going on a motocross track or an off-road race, or if I'm on a motorcycle, you're, a 250 against a 450, or a 125 against a 250. I think, I might have a little bit less motor, a little bit less vehicle, but you still gotta, we all got to hit the same bumps, same turns, and you still got to hit your marks.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask, obviously we talked a little bit about your two-wheel career. I know you said you spent a lot of time out in UTVs, out in the desert, things like that, having a good time. You ever on a dirt bike anymore, Larry?
I do. I ride all the time. I got me a new gas here recently. I ride as often as I can. I'm trying to, I was going to go this weekend, but with Father's Day, and we're going to do this night ride on UTVs on Friday. So come Tuesday or Wednesday next week, you won't be able to get a hold of me because I'll be up in the mountains on single tracks here, just east of San Diego is just west of me. I'm in El Centro, but Imperial, but there's McCain Valley has great single track, and it's a riding area that I go to often. It's helmet therapy for me, not only mentally, physically. I enjoy riding bikes, and it helps. I think it helps keep me sharp, and it's like I love playing golf, but I think I'd rather I haven't played golf in years now, but I'd rather just be able to jump on my motorcycle and go do 2 or 3 hour little training ride, practice ride, just a little getaway. So yeah, I love it.
What's the difference in preparing for the Baja 1000 to race in a trophy truck versus to race like you were doing at an elite level on two wheels? I mean, I know, obviously there's just so much more with two wheels. I mean, you make one slight mistake and the day is done. A trophy truck, obviously you don't want to make any mistakes. You make a slight mistake, you're probably going to be okay. What's the biggest difference in going and training and pre-running and getting prepared for a Baja 1000 to go for an overall on either one?
Yeah, so I still treat it like I'm on a bike. So I miscue by a few inches, and I'm my worst critic. I really, really try to be precise on everything, the rocks, the ditches. Of course, you can get away with more on the truck, but the biggest thing on bikes is getting prepared for a race like that. Is it's way more physical. The training that goes into it, the pre-running can actually wear you down a little bit, so you got to be careful about that. You go into the race half wore out, because you put in so much pre-running. Yeah. But yeah, it's just way more physical. And of course, the consequences for making a mistake are, definitely a lot worse on a bike. So, but I still treat it that way. My discipline for, reading the terrain, and I don't even use hardly the GPS even to this day. I saw Robbie Gordon pre-running, and we had dinner together, and he goes, yeah, we got over 400 and some notes already. How are you guys doing? We're talking about that. And I go, I don't know. I got 5 or 6 in my head, and we did a few on the GPS. It's like I'm literally just driving it like I would be racing it on a bike. Most of it's just pure memory, and I still pre-run a lot. If I'm not comfortable with a section, I'll do it again and break it up into sections. So for me to, do this one mountain loop is like 25 miles, and I'll just go blast it, and then not blast it, just go pre-run it. I don't pre-run fast. But if I don't feel like I really got it dialed and remember all the turns and all the rocks, and I go, I'm going to go do it again. So I'll do it back to back rather than trying to just do, say, one day you're going to do 300 miles. Just don't go do 300 miles. I'll break it down into sections. So I'll do that 25-mile loop 2 or 3 times, 4 times if I need to, and then, okay, I got that 25 miles just dialed. So then come race day, it's just like playing back a video. It's just like, oh yeah, up here. I mean, I'm calling out rocks. Eric Brandt rode with me. He's the owner of Baja Jerky. He goes, Larry, you're amazing. He goes, I can't even believe it. So I'm calling out the stuff to him that, normally a guy would be calling out to the driver, like, oh, right up here, I'm going to say hi to my other rock friend. He's been here for, the last 20 years. and up here, remember, this is where we stopped pre-running and we, had a sandwich. Oh, up here is where we, stopped and took a pee, whatever, and you just break it down into sections and you just play it all back race day. And you just, you're just clicking it off. And then we do mark some, like an extremely bad corner. We'll put a little highlight on the GPS. We'll drop a waypoint, and he'll call those off. Like just in case I forget about it. Like, oh yeah, we got one coming. I go, yeah, remember it's that off camber left that, with the ditch and the rock on the outside. Oh yeah, I remember that one's nasty. So we're talking about it as we're coming to it. So
yeah,
that's the easiest way for me to memorize the race courses.
Yeah. When was the last time you were in Baja and raced on a section you had never raced on before?
Actually, there's been several. I mean, Jose G at the race director at Score, he's been doing a really good job. So Sam Felipe just here recently, we had some new sections that I never been on, and let me think. This 500. I'm trying to think. We hadn't used it much, but I had been on it. I don't think there was any really new sections, but for the 1,000, it was new. So yeah, no, he's been doing a real good job trying to mix it up a little bit, but not very often.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, what's next for you guys in the Baja Jerky team? You guys are you sticking with Baja? We're gonna see you at Vegas to Reno. What's next for you guys?
We do. We have some big plans. So for sure, the next race will be Vegas to Reno is August. Yes. So I don't think we're going to have anything going on for Vegas to Reno. There was talk of it. We're actually looking into getting some UTVs. They're actually with the Mint coming up. That's in December now.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to build several. He's super excited about. We sponsored the class 11 race at the King of the Hammers.
Yes.
So we're going to continue supporting class 11. He wants to put a couple of our own in the mix. So they asked if I'd be willing to race a class 11. I said, hell yeah. So So I think in the meantime, the truck's going to get prepped. In September is the 400, and then of course the 1,000 in November. So 2 big races coming up that, of course we want to at least podium on. That's my goal. Being realistic, you can't win them all, right? But just put in a rock solid performance, and that's how I've always treated. I go to every race to win, but at the same time knowing, you're not going to win them all. But if you give it 100%, and you do all your work at home, you do your pre-running, good prep, and then just let the cards fall.
Yep, that's all you can do. Well, I appreciate the time, Larry. It's been a blast catching up, man. Thank you for the time, and thanks for everything you've done for the sport over the years.
Well, I tell you what, I thank you, and yes, a shout out to all the fans and support over the years. It's amazing. I have the older generation. I got those guys cheering me on. It's amazing what kind of response I get, and even the kids nowadays too. So it's amazing how like I said, I'm still riding that wave. So I've been truly blessed, and thank you for having me on.
Wow. I mean, mind is blown. I've done some fun interviews over the years, but I got to say, Larry Roeseler may, in fact, be right up there with my top interviews, I think, are favorites I've ever done. Man, talk about a legend, talk about a guy who's been around, done it all, seen it all, and he was a guest today. Man, thank you, LR, for the good times and the fun. Absolutely stoked to have you on the show. You know what else I'm stoked about? Our partners in this show. You know, if you own or rent your home, it's hard work, but you know what's not? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. And don't forget, Meguiar's has a hybrid ceramic solution for everyone for incredible water beating, action and protection and durability beyond traditional waxes. It's ceramic made easy. It's Meguiar's. And with that, I'm going to sign off for this week. And we'll see you next time right here on Project Action on Podcast One.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. And welcome to T-Pain's Nappy Boy Radio Podcast. The most fun you'll ever listen to while you're folding your clothes. Now let's get this straight. This is not your average podcast. T-Pain's Nappy Boy Radio is super fun, super crazy. It's pretty much an in-your-face conversation. That's the good thing about us. We don't do interviews. We do conversations. All of my guests, all of my co-hosts, we chill. We drink, we play games, we have the song of the week, we have the creative curse word of the week, as long as you're having fun as our guest. Speaking of guests, each week I'm going to go through my whole contact list and dive head first into the world of music, gaming, exotic cars, tech, strippers probably, doctors probably strippers that are only stripping so they can pay for tuition to become a doctor. You never know. My wife is a certified bartender. She'll make you a drink while you're here. We'll get you drunk and make you play VR after. It's a lot going on. But that's what it's all about over here at T-Pain's Nappy Boy Radio Podcast. See you soon, baby!